Hello once again, welcome to another episode of the European Tour's Life on Tour podcast, presented by Hilton, with me, Andrew Cotter, but more importantly with one of the key figures of the European game. Today we are in Dublin with a man who is one of the modern day greats of the game. I know that word great is bandied around quite a lot, but entirely deserved. 6 Ryder Cup appearances, 4 of them wins, 15 European Tour victories, 3 more on the PGA Tour, and within those titles, 3 major championships. He is, of course, Padraig Harrington. Padraig, welcome. Actually, you say welcome. I'm in. I can't say welcome to you. Here we are.
Welcome to my house.
Well, thank you very much. We are in Padraig Harrington's. Would you describe this as a man cave? This is the Uber man cave.
Yeah, more of a kid cave now. I think. My kids are. One of them's a teenager. It's more becoming their place. Maybe originally, I think I originally designed it with that sort of idea that would be somewhere where your kids would hang out and you might hang out with them.
Yeah. So for you loyal listeners, we're surrounded by some vintage. I'd say 80s. Some of them 70s. Space Invaders there, but some vintage arcade
Space
games.
Invaders right at the end of the 70s, but obviously I wasn't. It was in the 80s. I would have seen that, and we've got Pac-Man and Galaga there.
Table tennis table.
Table tennis table with robot.
With robot server as well.
Yeah,
so
that's quite a bit of fun. You can spend an hour or two hitting shots there.
Yeah.
Not quite the same as playing against somebody.
No, there we are.
Yeah, it's quite good. There's 1 or 2 modern games. House of the Dead is there, and it's a Star Wars pinball machine. That's also gets a bit of use.
And memorabilia from a life in. I mean, there's so many things to describe. I mean, what have we got? Hogan winning at 53 in Carnoustie, something there to represent that. Some trophies. Either a key for a giant car or something to represent one of your victories. You've got a giant Honda key from the Honda Classic. So
any of the tournaments I won that you get a car, you also get the key to represent it. So I kind of keep the keys. The cars go by the wayside. I'm surprised you haven't picked up on that one.
Well, I have, but I was going to save that because we're going to go through the very chronological form. But this is basically your scorecards and with the signature of Michael Campbell from the Benson Hedges International
where
Open.
I got disqualified.
Where you got disqualified. Yeah. So okay, let's start with that then. So just quickly, you keep that on the wall along with all your triumphs. But
well, there's not really many of my triumphs now. A lot of that sort of stuff is put. I've got one there. My physio giving me neck exercises. This is to kind of remind you of things. It's more interesting, obviously. When I was leading the Benson Hedges by 5, I think, going into the last round, the hotel decided at the Belfry that they'd get the cards and frame them. So they took the cards out, and as they were looking at them, they discovered that on day 1 my signature wasn't on the card. It was signed by Jamie Spence, who was my marker, and Michael Campbell, who was the 3rd person in the group. As Jamie passed the card to Michael to pass to me, Michael instinctively just signed where there was an empty space, and when I checked for 2 signatures, there was 2 signatures. I was disqualified on the Sunday. I was rather gutted.
Yeah, but I think you have
shed a tear.
Yeah, you shed a tear. But you said that you learn more from defeats than.
Oh well, that's that. Yeah, of course you're going to learn from that. That's not a learning. I suppose I did learn. I signed the card now twice. So I sign on top of my name as well as in the marker's position, because all you have to do is put your mark on the card. Even if I'd initialed the number on the card, it was good enough. Obviously, they've done away with that rule since Mark Rowe got disqualified from the Open. You just have to sign the card. But hey, I think they've even done away with it again now. I think once it's your card, I think even if you sign the wrong person's card, there's all sorts of things to change. All I know is I signed the card twice.
Okay.
So to make sure it doesn't happen again, I sign on top of my name. I suppose it's an unlikely scenario to happen, but look, it could happen again. It wasn't a big learning experience. My brother was there at the time, and he somewhat nullified it by saying, this will be one of the few times that people won't remember who won the tournament. They'll remember who, finished second, but not finished second, who obviously was disqualified. So do you remember who won the tournament? Now, you're a bit of an aficionado, so I think you do.
It wasn't Michael Campbell anyway, was it?
It was a big name.
Was it Olafable?
It was Olafable, I won it, yeah.
Right, okay, listen, you've taken us out of our neatly chronological timeline here, because we want to go back to the very start then and say, because here we are, we're sort of south of Dublin. It wouldn't be a million miles away from here that you grew up on the sort of south side of Dublin.
Oh, it's only 2 miles straight across the hills to where I am, 2-3 miles to where I played my golf, and another couple of miles, I suppose 5 miles to my actual home.
How old were you when you started playing?
I was at the golf course from the age of 4.
That's Stackstown.
Stackstown. So my dad, I was at the golf course from the age of 2, I suppose. He was a founder member of a golf course for the police in Dublin. A dozen of them got together and built a golf course because it was difficult for young policemen who came to Dublin from the country to get into golf clubs. It was expensive, or they weren't considered golf club material. So they built their own course. It was 15 minutes from my home, and that's where I hung out from. I probably hung out from whenever I could walk, even earlier, because it was started in 71 and I was born in 71.
And you mentioned already one of your brothers at the B&H, but you'd be the youngest of 5?
The youngest of 5, yeah.
So that's a competitive environment.
Well, yes, I would have. The oldest is nearly 10 years older than me, so I wouldn't say it was reasonably competitive, but I would have said I got more of the opportunities. Like all my brothers would have been working when they were teenagers. You know, at 13 years of age, they all would have been lounge boys in pubs and things like that, restaurants. They were all working. So I probably was the first one in the family who didn't work as a teenager. I was able to play golf.
And you got good quickly. Scratch at 15, would that be?
No, I tell you what, I was, let's see, I was a 5 handicap at 15,
okay.
9 handicap at 14. I went from 14, actually it was higher than 5, I was a 9 handicap at, could I have been 9 at 15? No, it must have been the other way around. So I went from 9 to 5 at 14, 5 to 1 at 15, 1 to scratch at 16.
All right, so it was a quick progress at the age of sort of 15. That's when you really
not like
kicked on.
today's.
No, well, I know, but I mean, a 1 handicap in the 1980s is...
Yeah. I kind of put it like this. I was able to beat everybody in my immediate vicinity at all ages. So when I was 13, I was beating the kids in my golf club. When I was 14, I was starting to beat the kids in my locality. 15, I was starting to beat them in my province and actually in the country. So I made the boys team when I was 15.
Yeah.
So I progressed very nicely, but never jumped. I never jumped out of my category, which is kind of strange. You know, you see these guys now at 14 years of age playing pro events. I didn't play a professional event until I was 24.
Yeah.
I always played in my own area first and kind of made sure I outgrew that before I went to the next area.
Well, I mean, you touched upon it there. You had a long amateur career, and very long by today's standard. I mean, so many people turn pro so young. They might play 1 Walker Cup, but you played 3, 91, 93, 95. Was that not an insecurity, but just you wanted to be absolutely sure that you could make it?
No, far from it. I had no intention of being a professional golfer. At 18 years of age, there was a junior panel picked in this country of 20 players, and I didn't get on it.
But you had a great amateur record. I mean, you were winning all your matches. Near enough.
As far as I was concerned, I was the best player in the country in that age group at that time. But for whatever reason, I could be overlooked. It was one of the most glaring committee decisions that has ever been made. Because 3 months later, I was playing on the full Irish team. I'd skipped that. Well, not skipped it, but I progressed. So it was a very odd decision. I'd gone from playing for under 18 for Great Britain and Ireland, and when I got to 18, they decided I wasn't good enough for the junior panel under 21s. But however, so it's not that I wasn't good enough. It just shows that I could be overlooked. Yeah. That I didn't, as successful as I was in my performances, there was obviously an element that you couldn't see with me. I wasn't a very, I wasn't a pretty golfer. I got it done.
Yeah.
And at that stage, 18 years of age, I was like most kids. I just left school, and what do I do? Wasn't really sure. I wanted to be in the golf industry. I didn't think I was good enough to be a golf pro. I actually had no inkling to be a golf pro at 18 years of age. So I went into night school, did accountancy at night. And it was only halfway through that, like I was not quite 21, when I decided I would have a go at turning pro because I could beat the other guys who were turning pro. And so I thought if they thought they were good enough, I could beat them. So why not have a go? And my aspirations only ever worth to have a journeyman career on, you know, it would have been very successful if I held my card for 5 years, you know, finishing 50th to 100 in the European Order of Merit. That's a very successful career. I would have been very happy with that. That was where my aspirations were. And, you know, I finished my accountancy at 23 and took the year off and practiced, played full time. Not that I wasn't playing full time, but, you know, when you're doing night school, you're getting as much golf as you want in. So, yeah, look, I would have thought I was, at the stage I was studying accountancy, I would have thought I was going to be, you know, a golf course manager, something like that. I didn't know player management existed. I would have liked that. I think that's where I would have tried to go if I had known about it. But you don't know these things when you're a kid. You don't know what's out there in the big world.
But do you need a sort of role model to inspire? I'm not saying. I mean, on the south side, in fact, I think you went to the same school as Paul McGinley. Now, he'd be a couple of years older, but he was quite a late developer in golfing terms as well, in terms of turning.
Yeah, absolutely. That wouldn't have been. He was 5 years ahead of me in school, so I didn't know him in school, but I knew of him. I knew of him in the area, and yeah, he was a late developer. Again, he wasn't. I think he was at best number 3 in his golf club. There was 2 players in the club that. Funny enough, that's the closest club to where I lived. But there was already 2 players in that club, maybe 3 players in that club. Actually, now that I think of it, there was 3 players on their junior team that were better than him.
Don't ask me to name them because
British Boys champion, one of them, Leslie Walker.
All right, yeah.
So
no.
he was the big star in the area at the time, and there was Brian Shaw, who's down at Doonbeg, the pro there. And I'm struggling with the third, but there was a third guy there at one stage. I tried to join the club too at one stage, but I didn't manage to get in.
God, that would have been a good team. But it just shows in terms of development of golfers, there are so many different ways of doing it. And don't be too frustrated if you...
That's the beauty of golf. You don't have to be good at this game at 14 years of age, and it can actually be quite detrimental to be good. You know, you show me a 14-year-old who hits all the fairways and all the greens, he's unlikely to be a good pro. You know, you want the guy with a bit of imagination, a bit of flair, maybe fighting the system. They're the ones who tend to make it successful. And as I said, you don't really need to hit your peak into your 20s because it's a long career. And we've seen so many good players who are like beautiful golfers, beautiful golfers and star players. I think the ones who are star players but aren't beautiful golfers when they're teenagers seem to go on. But the ones who are really good as teenagers but also swing the club well and hit the golf ball well and have all that sort of game in hand, the stress and the pressure just builds as they go on, and where's the improvement? They can't improve their swings, so they struggle when they get out in the pro tour, and you know they become a small fish in a very big pond.
Yeah. That third Walker Cup you played in '95 at Porthcawl, that was your first Walker Cup win. That was an interesting Walker Cup because there were so many different characters coming together on both sides. And was that your first experience of Tiger Woods?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd heard of him, but yeah, that was my first experience. He obviously was the big star of the show in '95. Gordon Sherry was our counter to that, you know, which was unfortunate for Gordon because in the end of the day, the media just hyped him up so much, built him up so much, and in many ways he believed that hype. Gordon was a fine player. We played a lot of games, myself and Gordon. We still are good friends today, and like he could play, but I think he got somewhat lost in believing the hype, believing the perfection that he had, where, you know, he was taught by Bob Torrance, and I would have played a lot with him, and he hit the ball great. He had a great short game, but he was by no means, he was the same as the rest of us. He was by no means ever did he missed plenty of shots and just recovered just the way everybody else did it.
Yeah. Well, see, I was the 17th best player at my club, and now Gordon was, because I grew up playing with Gordon at Marlborough and Alan Reid and people like Jim Billig and things like that.
Oh, so, played with Jim. Played my first. I played my first home international singles match against Jim Milling in 1990.
Yeah, good old Jim. Anyway, we're sort of digressing somewhat, but moving on, turning pro then. Actually, '96, you know, it happened for you. There was some success quite early on, so you must have thought this transition, why did I wait so long? But it happened quite easily for you. Yeah,
well, you say that. I turned pro after the home internationals in '95, and probably my proudest record is my amateur record. I never lost a singles match in the home internationals. I never lost a singles match in the European Championships either. So those are my up there with anything else I've ever done in golf. So it was a good catalyst to go on. But I did play the European Open in the K Club in the October of that year. And, as a young kid playing the first pro event, I did make a little bit of some strategic errors in preparation. And I remember I played with two of the bigger stars in the European Tour. And I certainly don't hold this against the guy. And if I was the player myself looking back, I would have said the same thing. But after my first two rounds, one of the seasoned pros was heard telling anybody in the clubhouse who would listen to him, why is this guy turning pro? He will never make it.
Right.
But if I was looking at myself at that stage, I would have said the same thing.
But does that, a little bit like being overlooked, in the Irish side, does that sort of spur you on a bit of adversity?
It's not a spurring on, and it wouldn't. No, I didn't need adversity. I don't need spurring on. And I remember the committee came back and says, we were trying to motivate you. I'm the last person who needed motivation. It just showed what style of player I was. It's like...
You had a great shot. I mean, a great shot and great...
But you don't see what I had. I had the X factor. You don't see it. It's easy to see a guy with a beautiful golf swing who smashes it out there miles, and you go, oh, that guy looks like a player. I didn't look like a player. At the time, I would have been soft. I was a big enough guy, but overweight, soft enough, and I had a pull cut off the tee, had a bit everything going on, and it's very easy. If I saw myself playing, and then I would have said, "Well, this guy ain't making it," but you can't see the hidden stuff.
That's interesting you talk about that, because there is that sort of intangible, and also people who. You can be very successful amateurs, but it's a very different thing playing golf for a living when there's a different kind of pressure there, I presume.
There is a different pressure. Now, I would say, in terms of a good amateur player, why does he not play well as a pro? There's one simple reason. He doesn't believe that he's good enough, and he's always trying to... He's never within his own... He's never playing within himself. He's always trying to play somebody else's game when he turns pro. We've seen it so many times. We've seen so many great amateurs playing pro events. They're great players, and they turn up as a pro, and all of a sudden they're trying to play like a pro. They're trying to play above themselves. They're trying to... All this sort of stuff, instead of just doing their own thing and settling and see where they stand in the game. There is nothing in this game of golf that compares with self-confidence. If you've got self-confidence, if you believe in your stuff, and that's why we keep seeing it time and time again. We see a lot of the guys who... I don't like using... who have ego. A lot of the guys who have ego are the ones who eventually come through. Not necessarily the beautiful, talented players. It's the ones who can believe that their stuff is good enough. And I think... I myself, that was the biggest thing to make my success on the tour. When I got out, I got through tour school fine, no problem. I think in 9 rounds of tour school, I don't think I failed once to get up and down around the green, or I didn't have a 3-putt.
Your brother was that Tig was on?
Tig was caddying for me. Yeah. Tig would have been my tournament caddy back in the day. Now both my other brothers, Cullum caddied for me when I was in the UK. My dad caddied for me as well. But when things were serious, Tig was the one who was on the bag. And yeah, it was interesting. I've got to say, it must have been incredible watching me as a caddy and being involved in it, because I literally was all over the place at times and still putting scores together. I still do it today. I know I pride myself on that I shoot scores that nobody else could shoot from where I'm playing from.
Yeah. I mean, and now in this extraordinary man cave of many treasures, I didn't see the Spanish Open 1996. Is there representation from that? Is there
in this room? No. The trophy's in my office upstairs.
Okay, but there we go. That's your first on the European Tour. So I mean, yeah, that must.
Well, I got distracted. What I was going to tell you. So I'm on the Challenge Tour, and I get playing a tournament in Kenya, Nairobi. I'm there. And on probably Monday evening, I think we're out playing a practice round, and a call comes in saying that a spot has opened up in the South African PGA, which is on the European Tour in Durban. And I think 6 players turned it down. I said, no, I'll go. So I flew in on the Tuesday. I practiced for 12, 14 hours on the Wednesday, as you do. And Durban's like 40 degrees of heat, so I got seriously dehydrated. Like I shook and shivered all night. I'm sure I should have been in hospital, but back then we didn't do that. You didn't know about it. And lucky I had a late tee time. I had a local caddy. I played with clubs that were 4 degrees too upright. I had to grip them on the steel for the week. And this is Kikuyu grass, so it really is awkward. I hit the ball just about everywhere, and it's a tight golf course. Clearly, I got up and down on every shot, but I discounted that. And at the end of the week, I had finished 46th. I rang my mother and said, Mum, and it was my mum I was talking to. I said, Mum, this is unbelievable. I couldn't have played worse. I couldn't have more things go wrong for me. And yet, I finished 46th. I won £1,480. They are just giving this money away. They are giving it away. And that's how I felt. But you can't believe the confidence I took, because I made a cut and I felt I played badly. I felt like there was more in the tank. Whereas a lot of these guys come out, as I said, the young guys, they're good players. They play well and they're on the cut line and things don't go against them. They miss the cut and all of a sudden they think, oh, my game isn't good enough to make a cut. I've got to change things. I've got to improve things. I would say to any young guy turning pro, don't change a thing for at least 2 years. After 2 years, you have a good idea where you stand in the game of golf. And yes, you might have to change something, but for the first 2 years, just play your own game.
Okay. So we then move on to the Spanish Open. When we're going to have to skip through a few things because there's so much in your career, but the Spanish Open, we'll just say, just sum up the feeling of a first title.
I made my first 3 cuts, made my first 7 cuts, then I had 3 top 10s, and then I won the Spanish Open. I played with blinkers. So basically, after this run, when making the cut, I didn't question anything. It was like I had blinkers on. I just kept playing. I played 10 in a row. Just kept going forward, did not think about it, did not analyse it, did not get into it, and just kept playing. I was running with that ball and never looking behind me and never making judgments. Got to the Spanish Open. I just got hot during the week, kept playing. Obviously, hold the putts. It was phenomenal. Johnny O'Reilly on my bag. I had an old caddy who was retired. I brought out from retirement, and it was a great week. Everything fell into place, and I think the check is here. The check is normally around here. Yeah, I'm surprised.
A photocopy of the check. You've cashed the check a long time ago.
Sure, I don't need to cash those checks.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, they're small fry.
The European Tour has got all that money still belong to me.
Oh, excellent.
£92,000, I think 166.
Really?
Yeah.
There's the accountant speaking. The accountant that never was. 1997 then. Well, I mean, that's a big year. We'll come on to, getting close to things at Troon in the Open, but off the course, as we go a bit Hello Magazine on you, married. Is that right, 1997? I hope I've done that.
Yes, you're correct, yes.
Now here's a bit of research for you. Is it true that your first film that you went to see with on first date was Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse?
Yes, 1989.
Now, for those who haven't seen Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, it's basically Patrick Swayze sort of...
He's the bouncer.
He's the bouncer, yeah. Just basically
a brawler brought in to sort out the place, and he falls in. I always think it's Alison Doody. It's not Alison Doody, but looks very like her. My wife corrects me every time, so you'll have to tell me who the romantic interest is in the movie.
I can't remember. I was just transfixed by Patrick Swayze.
For our 15-year anniversary, my wife hired out the cinema, and we went to see Roadhouse again.
Really?
Yeah. Just the two of us.
Roadhouse. Oh dear, I love Roadhouse.
Yes.
Anyway, again, we've gone off down a sort of Roadhouse side alley. But anyway, so that year a lot is happening. Happy man off the course, happy man on the... I mean, Troon 5th in the Open Championship. So again, suddenly you feel I can, contend in a major.
I didn't contend though. I played well, had a good week, good score, but I wasn't going to win it. And I didn't know I'd finish 5th in it. That's how little... I have no idea I'd finish 5th in Troon. I can't even tell you anything about it. All I know is I didn't have a chance of winning it because I remember that. So that one didn't register whatsoever on my career list.
Really? Did you back into it? I can't really remember the final round.
I did. I know I didn't. I didn't have a chance of winning it. What 2 majors at that stage stand out in my career? I in my first year in '96, I played in the Open at Lytham, and I hold a bunker shot on Friday afternoon on the 18th hole with all the crowds there. I got so excited, the hairs in the back of my neck stood up. I took the putter out of the bag. Obviously didn't need the putter. I'd hold the bunker shot. So that was one of the more exciting moments in my career. And then the next pivotal moment was, I'm going to skip forward, the Olympic Club, '98.
Right, yeah.
So I played my best golf that I could that week. Again, short game was sharp. So I maxed my game out that week and finished 27th.
Okay.
And that was the catalyst to change for me. Okay. You know, up to that stage, I was doing my thing, and now I'd moved to a stage that I wanted to try and compete and win in majors. And I saw, well, I just don't have a game for it.
Okay. So I'd thought that it was congressional the year before that you had a sort of
congressional and win. No, those ones wiped me out. I couldn't compete. They were big, huge golf courses with manic rough, and I just didn't know how anybody could play these courses. It was when I got to Olympic Club that I actually performed. Right. I hit the ball. I didn't look at the Olympic Club and think I left anything behind, and I was 27th, and I was going, well, there's an element of this. Obviously, I always knew I could compete in a links golf course, but there's an element of this. I've got to change my physical ability to hit the golf ball if I'm ever going to compete in the US majors.
Yeah, and you mentioned actually, you said you were quite a big lad. You needed to.
I'd already gone down the fitness road. I think about 2 years into my career, or even at the end of my first year in the career, I think I started, working on the fitness. That was one of the first things I did change. At the end of my first year, I was probably touching. I was probably a soft 15 stone, if not a little bit more. At one stage, I got it all the way down to 165 pounds from 215 or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
165 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I tried everything. I went up, down. I've put on muscle, taken muscle. I've tried everything in the game just to see how it affects performance. So in that sense, yeah, I tried being a skinny man. But the worst part about being a skinny man for me, and I really, really hold a grudge about this, I had my body fat down to 8%, and I still didn't have a six-pack.
Right. Okay.
And look, all the guys in the gym, I see it all the time. They start off with good intentions. I'm going to go to the gym to improve my golf, but it becomes very quickly a vanity thing. I want to look good and this. Imagine that 8% body fat and no six-pack. And I had really good abs. So it's not like I wasn't working it. Like guys at 12 and 13% even can have abs. Genetically, I'm not great when it comes to that.
Yeah, you're looking at me as if,
Well, you're. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not envisaging you without your clothes on. That's all I'll tell you.
But no, I'm still picturing Patrick Swayze for some reason. Anyway, so when did you start working with Bob Torrance?
So it was after Olympic Club '98. I said, right, who is the best? I knew I had the short game. I knew I had the mental game. Who is the best swing coach in the game? And Bob Torrance was easily the best. Every player he worked with was a great ball striker, and that's what set him apart. And it was the part we were in many ways the perfect match, because Bob, he could do short game, but in the end of the day, Bob really believed that the game should be played. The only time you should be chipping is back to a par four. That would be Bob's attitude. It was, and every player he had were ball strikers, and he worked obviously a lot with. He worked a lot with Irish guys at the stage. Nearly all the Irish guys had gone through him, and I'd known him from working with the Scottish players when I was playing amateur golf. So it was an obvious choice, but we were a match made in heaven, because I already had the short game and the mental game. I just needed the swing and the long game, and he had the tools to teach me those. You
spent many an hour in damp teaching bays at Inverclyde outside Largs, is that?
Yeah, we didn't spend much in the bays. We were outside most of the time. Yeah, up in Largs. So I can tell you what, it's
cup of tea, Jaffa cakes.
Oh, we went through some amount of tea. Yeah, we would go through some tea. It was great times. Yeah. I've got to say, some of the best times ever. Just Bob. He was somebody who was infectious to be around. He just was great. He had a great humour. He was a super guy to be around. He was easy to be around. He was enthusiastic about the game. yeah, he was. I always said it at the time. He was. You always wanted to be like him when you got older. That's the sort of person his sense of humour was fantastic, and working with him was never a chore. The two of us would happily stand there for. We'd be up. We're not really early risers. We'd be up maybe from 9 o'clock, and we'd come home at 5 o'clock.
How many balls do you think you would hit in a day with Bob Torrance? Doing sessions when you're really grinding it out.
Well, I don't know how many balls, but we'd start at 9. We would obviously break for lunch, and we'd be back at 5 o'clock in the evening, and we'd have our dinner, and we'd be finished our dinner at 6, half 6. We'd be at it again afterwards. We'd be either in the garden or go back up again, or we'd be talking about working on it. We wouldn't leave it alone. Like it was close to, there were certainly 10 hours of physical work at least in that day. Maybe 12. That's a lot of physical work, when you put it all down together, that's a lot of hitting shots. And yeah, I would. Yeah, I'd never get blisters from it because it'd be hard enough. But I don't think if I got a blister, I don't think Bob would have taught me.
Yeah,
he'd be embarrassed for me.
I can hear him now. But I mean, my point is that for anyone who, there are exceptions like. Monty would have a light practice session or whatever, but in most sports there's no secret. You get it out what you put in. And do you have to have something? What is it that drives you to? Are you just looking for not perfection, but just looking to get better all the time?
I think I'm particularly driven. There's no doubt about it, and I really like it. I'm an optimist, which I think is a huge part of it. I think the fact that even on my worst day, if I start practicing, so I could lose a tournament, make a mess of it, be horrible, whatever, and like anybody else, I'd be thinking about it for that night or whatever. But the minute I get out and start hitting shots the next day, I have the optimism, the belief, and it's a dream, not necessarily a belief, especially after years, that I'm going to find the secret. But, it's that, and I think Bob always had that that the next ball could be it. It could make all the difference. It could change everything. You could get that. Even though Bob did say, and if you listen to him, that nothing lasts forever. And he did say that no matter how good you swing the club today, if you don't keep working on it, it will change itself, and you have to keep going. But in terms of performance, because I wouldn't like to put this out there, there is no point in there's a time and a place for all sorts of practice. Changing a golf swing and working on things does require a lot of repetition, but playing competitive golf really doesn't require, once you have your game, it requires more mental strength than anything else. And by Monty not practicing, he was very mentally strong. He was mentally strong on Sundays. He was fresher on Sundays. One of my... I don't have a regret about it, but one thing I would do different with experience is I practice too often and improve too much on a Saturday evening when I was in contention. The amount of times I found something on a Saturday going into a Sunday and hit the ball better on Sunday than I did on Saturday, but didn't play as well. I would say you're better off sticking with what you got at a tournament, because it really does come down to your decisions during the week.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get what the motivating factor is, because saying you're an optimist and believe the next shots, but is there a motivating factor, whether it's as simple as just making a successful career, winning titles, winning money, looking after your family? What is the thing which drives you to keep going and keep trying?
I enjoy the aspect of competing and winning, and it's nothing to do with the outcomes. It's more to do with the feeling of, wow, if I can change this, I can do this, I get control over this game someday, and I'll be, yeah. It's the idea that I can get better.
Yeah.
That is it. That is really it. The drive that I can get better. The minute I think I can't get better, I think that would be the end of me.
Well, let's go to the Ryder Cup, because we're nearing another Ryder Cup, and we talked about this actually. Brookline was your first, and everyone looks back and says, "Oh, shock horror, Brookline! What a!" But for you, it was
the best
incredible.
one. Yeah, it was the best one for me. Obviously, you're looking at Boston, and you had a huge Irish contingent that day event.
You got none of the abuse or heckling?
None whatsoever. None at all. And my singles match on the Sunday looked like it was going to be the pivotal match. I think we'd lost the first 5 matches. I was 6th match. I never looked at the leaderboard, but I was the only blue on the leaderboard, even though I wasn't looking. So I'm paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm playing my game, and we're waiting on the 13th green. I remember Duval was up ahead, finishing. I think he was finishing his match at that stage, and are close to it. And from then on, the crowds just started surging around our group. Everybody, because nobody's watching your match in the Ryder Cup once you're down the order. And then everybody started coming back and watching, and they started telling Mark O'Meara, we need this one, Mark, you're the one, Mark, we need this. So as much as I wasn't watching the leaderboard, you know quite well what's going on. And when we finished on 18, closed the match out, I thought I'd won the Ryder Cup. I've never been on a high like it. I was buzzing. I did a very quick interview. Elizabeth was 4 up, so that point was kind of given to us. We assumed that's why the crowds were thinking mine was the match, and I didn't really know much that was going on. I ran down the 18th fairway to the 17th green. I glided down the fairway. I probably never touched the ground. I got there. Everybody congratulated me. I sat down. The crowd settled, and Justin Leonard held that putt. So that's the whole extent. It probably was 10 minutes, but it felt like a minute of me thinking I'd won the Ryder Cup. And in that second, because there wasn't there was one person, and that was Jose, who was on the green. Everybody else thought that was the end of the match. I know Jose had a putt, as it turned out, to obviously to have the hole, but we all had thought we'd lost at that stage. Everybody, the crowd, everybody, and it was taken away from me that quickly.
Yeah. What did you think when you saw everyone bouncing onto the green? Because obviously there was a huge amount of.
Oh, we thought it was over.
Yeah. So you didn't think at the time, oh, it's shocking.
No. I actually took it the opposite. The greatest thing we've done in Europe, and it all showed up in that moment in time, is we've made the Americans care about the Ryder Cup. And that proved it. That proved that they wanted to win, that they cared. They got too excited. Yeah. They got, there's nothing more than that. They just got overly excited. Isn't that great? That's why we Fine, they ran in the green. It wasn't, over the line. We all thought the match was over. Everybody thought it was over. The fact that they did it, in a perfect world, you wouldn't want them to run on the line. But if you look at it like this, we drove them to that. We created that, and that's all that the Europeans could have asked for. Is we were crying up to that, and the reason why we do well in the Ryder Cup is because we have a chip on our shoulder that we don't get the due respect from the US. The European Tour is the country cousins of the US, and their emotions at that moment proved, hang on a second, these guys care. And remember, at the time, that was the Ryder Cup in '99 was the one that the US were starting to call for being paid. We want to be paid to play in this event. We should get money, this, that, and the other. So this was a summing up for, hang on a second here, these guys care. They want to win now.
Yeah, see, it's interesting that, because the Ryder Cups I remember being most animated about were not European wins, but they were Kiwi Island and Brookline, because they were the two that people said, oh, behaviour stepped over the edge. But I loved them as contests. I
know my friends, and anybody who's not fully into golf, they'll all watch the Ryder Cup because of the atmosphere. If it was the President's Cup, nobody watches the President's Cup. It's a friendly. Those players all play with each other week in, week out in the States. There is niggle in the match between Europe and the States, again because we feel we've got a point to prove, and I think that's way ahead of this idea that we're all friends in the team room and all that. It's just we have a real common goal in Europe, and that's the legacy of going back to the 80s with Sevi, that we weren't even getting into the majors in the States. We weren't even getting a fair shot at it. We weren't considered. They were our big brother, or we have a chip on our shoulder, probably 2 chips on our shoulder, and it showed up. I think now that the US care, and they do care about the Ryder Cup, that Europe can be very proud of that.
Just skipping ahead a bit, because one Ryder Cup, which was a huge European victory, was at 2004 Auckland Hills, which also has become a very important course for you in your career. But that was captained by Bernard Lang, and I noticed you said that he was a sort of hero of yours.
I don't know, he was the guy I looked up to and admired. He was the professional's professional. I don't know if hero, can Bernard be a hero? I think he's he's the guy I would have admired and learned the most from. This is a guy who had the yips a couple of times and came back from it, overcame adversity. By all accounts, when he was turned pro, he couldn't hit his hat. He was, pretty rubbish at that stage, and he got through it all. He worked through it, and certainly his personality, that would be more. I would look to him to learn more, but heroes are swashbuckling, and even though he can do a swashbuckling swing, Bernard, but Seve is a hero. That's a different style of thing. I was very lucky. I played, I had some great captains. Mark James in '99 was incredibly entertaining, was a great captain in the team room. Unfortunately, a losing captain with some catastrophic errors, and that will always. The strangest thing about the Ryder Cup is, if you win, you're a great captain. If you lose, you're a terrible captain. Mm-hmm. Actually, what you do is irrelevant. It's the result determines what people think of you, because we've had some bad captains who have won. And we've had some great captains who've lost, and they get hammered. But obviously, Mark made a few catastrophic errors, that will never be made again. He took a few for the team. Put it like that. You got to play your rookies. You got to play everybody. You got to try and play everybody first day. You got to get everybody played before the singles. You don't want to pick too many. There's lots of different things that we could change. But then I played under Sam, Wuzzy and Bernard. And Sam and Wuzzy were very similar. Arm around your shoulder. I'm dropping you because I'm saving for the next match. I really believe in you. You're the man, and would be very, trying to build up your confidence, very personable, very much. Bernard, the opposite. Bernard gave out to me at the first team meeting in the tournament, because I think I laid up on the 6th hole with a 5-wood into the hazard, and he sat at the team meeting that night, everybody sitting there quiet, and he says, now we'll make sure nobody lays up into the hazard on number 6 tomorrow. And of course I was the only one who'd done it that day, but he was, as you would expect, he was on every par 3 telling you what happened to the groups before, what clubs to hit, very much on top of it. Wuzzy and Sam gave you the impression they believed in you, and let you run with it. Bernard, not that he didn't believe in you, but was there to help you more, wanted to be involved more, a little bit more control, let's say. Obviously, we had Faldo, which was... There was a lot of things that went wrong in that, no doubt about it. We didn't have, I'd won a couple of majors. I think myself, Lee and Miguel Angel Jimenez were the older guys, and we didn't have a captain in the team room. We didn't have somebody standing up there. We could have done with Darren Clark was the pick. Would have been nice to have somebody whose job would have been to sort of lead the players in the team room like Monty had done for many years. I think, it was a weird one. I think Nick wanted us to play like he played golf, which is do your own thing, and whatever gets you playing your best as an individual, you knew that, and just go about it. And we were 12, we were a rudderless ship, to be honest. We were 12 individuals not known, just didn't work. And that was a good experience. Monty then in 2010, he, just took all the best ideas that he'd seen over the years, put them together, and just let it happen that way. It was, again, instilled a lot of confidence in his team, a bit like the Wuzzy and the Sam Torrance, but had learned from all the Ryder Cups, the good and the bad, and just made sure he did all the good stuff and not make any of those mistakes that other captains had to make to learn from.
How would you captain? I'm presuming you would like to captain one day.
I'd love to captain. It's a difficult process. As I said, you can be a great captain, and if your team loses, that's it. You're done for. You're judged on that forever. I have my notes over the years. I take notes of what I would do and what I wouldn't do, and I'm sure I will do it again. And again, try and gather what has worked in the past and do it again, and try and eliminate the mistakes that have happened in the past. But obviously, you've got to work with your team. It's becoming extraordinarily hard to win to win on foreign ground. So when you're away from home, like that set up last time in Hazeltine,
Bomber's Paradise.
It was set up. They got a stats guy in, and they've got a stats guy says, "Look, if you make it a birdie fest, the US are definitely going to win." So they just turned it into a birdie fest. Fast greens, soft greens, Bomber's Paradise. The US are going to beat us in a birdie fest. What's Paris National going to be? It's not going to be a birdie fest.
You said it's not going to be a Padraig Harrington course, you know?
No, it wouldn't be my style of golf.
Your wild card selection is not...
No, I'm not waiting. They're not talking about me behind my back and going to surprise me, that's for sure. No, I'd advocate the Ryder Cup down the road. I know it's not going to happen too soon. It should be an independent setup.
Yeah.
The Australian PGA should come in and set it up, something like that. The two teams are too close and too good that, as I said, given home field advantage now, we needed it in Europe back in the day. We needed the bias because we were generally trying to have 8 players beat 12 or close to that, and we needed the system to work. But nowadays we're good enough to beat them on their own terms. But it's tough when you have the biases.
Let's come back to the majors then, because now you said you couldn't remember where you finished at Trin when you were 5th, but then skip forward. 2002 was a good year. Yeah. So I'm going to list the majors, and you tell me what position you finished.
There's only. No. I got to tell you, but I can tell you the majors that matter.
Okay. No. Well, I'll tell you the majors. You tell me what position you finished. The Masters in 2002.
No idea.
Okay, you were 5th.
No idea.
2002. US Open at Bethpage. Now I remember you going along very well there for a while. So
I remember that one. I don't think I had a chance to win it, but I played well and was competitive.
Did you play with Woods that year as well? Or you're in the group ahead or group behind you?
Don't remember.
Don't remember, obviously. 8th at the US Open, and then Muirfield is the one I presume you would remember.
2002 is a standout Open. As it turned out, I had a par down the last to get in the playoff. But that really isn't what stood out for me. That's the first time I've ever turned up at a tournament where my long game far outsurpassed my short game. I struggled big time that week in the greens. I played majestic tee to green. Probably I put it up there that week as the best golf I ever played, as good tee to green as ever played anywhere. Unfortunately for me, I always considered it at the time an outlier. I didn't know how I did it. Didn't know why I did it. Didn't know why I played so well tee to green. I was just it was completely the opposite sort of. I hit fairways and greens all week, like just beautiful, struck the ball, beautiful, great chances, and struggled on the greens. Like if I had an average week on the greens, clearly I would have been winning. But I didn't learn anything from it. I just couldn't. I didn't know why. It was always one of those ones, and put it out there as I still turned up at majors at that stage, and it only changed when I got to Winged Foot in 2006. I still turned up at majors believing I needed to get lucky, have a big week in order for me to win. I thought I could win a major, but I believed it was nearly an outer body experience for me to win the major. It needed to be that extraordinary week for me to win the major. But when I turned up at Winged Foot in 2006, I had a better plan in place, better preparation. I played the golf I expected to play. Again, played much better, majestic tee to green for me, and had 3 pars to win the tournament. That's how close I got. I know Winged Foot is remembered because Monty hit the 7-iron in the last and Phil messed it up. I hit 3 pars to win there. And I hit 3 good tee shots. So I'd done the hard work. I bogeyed the first hole. First time I'd missed the green all day. On the 16th, I bogeyed the 16th. And then I pressed too hard on 17 and 18. Nowadays, I probably would have parred the last 2 holes and got myself into the playoff.
But by winged foot, you're, I presume, a totally different player, character. You won a couple of times on the PGA.
Yeah. No, I was a different player, and my game was coming, but still, it's a major. You can have great players. You get to majors. Why are majors easier to win? Because 90% of the field, 95% of the field, 98% of the field, just get it horribly wrong coming into majors. They have coaches, they have all sorts of things going on. They treat it as, it is a different week, but it's amazing how they overdo it. They're like, how many guys play well the week after a major? Like, it's startling how many guys. So I got a good formula together that got me prepared for a major. And when I turned up at a major at that stage, and this is the key to playing well, I believed my game was good enough as is to win a major. I didn't believe I needed the big week. I knew it was, I don't mean that big week, but I didn't believe that I needed the stars to align to win. I just knew I was already there.
So when Carnoustie comes around, then you have all that knowledge in the back, and do you just feel comfortable that week until the 72nd hole? All majors, I had a good formula. I working on the principle, do my preparation right. I'll play well in 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4, I'll compete in 2 out of 4. And if I compete in 2 out of 4, this was my logic. Every 2 years, that's 4 times I'm in contention. I should get 1 win. That's really good in major speak. So this worked out in my head. Just turn up, feel like you're ready, as I did, and let it happen. And Carnoustie I was one of the best players in the game not to have won a major at that time. I would have been well tipped, and I played nicely. And then when I got to Sunday, I played unbelievable on Sunday. Hit it fantastic, all the way to the 72nd hole, and just really it was an overconfidence thing on the 72nd hole. I do have the habit of doing it. I still to this day I have the habit. It's like laying up on par 5s. It's one of the hardest things to do because it's too easy. I got in the tee on 18th. I'd driven it so well all day. I was going to just bust it down the middle of the fairway. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, no problem. Got to the top of the backswing and I'd given it. Oh my God, don't hit it left. And I succeeded. By the way, I've never hit a golf shot in my entire life that didn't go where I wanted it to go. Right. So that didn't go where you wanted it.
Oh, it did.
So it went where you wanted it to go.
Yeah, I didn't want it to go left, so where'd it go?
That's kind of Bob Rotella speak as well, isn't it?
Oh, well, I've worked with Bob. Yeah, that is the truth of it. I've worked with, but very much so. Since 1997, I've worked with Bob. And, I read his book then and, really at the start, the innocence of it at the start, it was so beautiful. But I've had to work harder. But through that period when I was winning the majors, there's no doubt I was right on top of my routine and Bob Rotella stuff. I was in a very, very nice place. But I still to this day, I've never hit a golf shot where I didn't ultimately. And I assume that's the case with most people. That if I get that thought, don't hit it left. Well, I'll succeed in don't hitting it left.
So anyway, you hit it miles right into the burn it went. But the whole that sporting drama, golfing drama, that theatre there as you came down the 18th and Garcia was coming the other way playing the 17th, and you sort of met on the bridge. And again, a lot was made of that, and we've talked about it. There's a stare but you didn't really. You were so focused, you almost.
Well, I was very aware of what was happening at the time, and I was walking across the bridge trying to look confident and stoic, and I still got this, and I was absolutely 100% trying not to make myself look in any shape or form weak or like I've messed up. I was trying to be right. I'm still here, and he smiled. I don't know what to read into the smile. Who knows what you could read a million things into it if you wanted to, but they all mean nothing. It only means what you're thinking in your own head. And I was thinking, right, I've still got this. I've hit one bad shot. Everybody can hit a bad shot. I can still do it from here. So after you finish the 72nd hole and Patrick runs on through and you flip him upside down or whatever and carry him off, then that helped you get ready for the. Well, you didn't know you were going to be in a playoff at that point, but just sort of set things in your mind again. Clearly when I hit my second third shot, after taking a penalty drop, I hit it in the hazard. I felt the opposite of the first shot. I was deflated, devastated. I felt I'd lost the Open. My caddy spent the 5 minutes or whatever it took to get to the golf ball, talking me around, and I think I wanted to strangle him to start off with. But by the time I hit that chip shot in the 72nd hole, it's the greatest shot I've ever hit in my life. I was actually back in the zone. You know, it takes what I was alluding to with the majors. It takes me 3 weeks to get in the zone, and I actually dropped out of it and back into it. Which is, I'm not too sure if any other sportsman has ever been in the. If you're in the zone, you know it, and when you drop out of it, it's extraordinarily hard to get back in. But I got back into it, hit a great chip shot, hold the putt. Was devastated again when I hold the putt because it was over and I thought I'd lost again. I was back into that. My son ran on the green. He looked at me like I was the champion anyway, so that cheered me up no end. I sat in the recorder's hut. They turned off the TV because they were obviously embarrassed for what had happened to myself, and I wanted them to turn it back on because I needed to see what Sergio did. Thankfully, you know, Sergio laid up off the last. He was the best driver of the ball in the game at the time, and he laid up with an iron off the tee. Left himself a lot to do. Hit a good shot in the bunker. Hit another good shot. Well, an average shot anyway to about 8 feet. And when he's hitting that putt, I'm watching it, and at no stage did I go miss, or wish that he missed. Now I knew I needed to miss, but I just kept telling myself I was going to win. I'm going to win this Open. So when he did miss, I didn't get a high or a low. There was no emotional change. I just was, I'm going to win this tournament. Logically, he had to miss for me to win the tournament, but I didn't sit there going, gee, I need him. I wish he misses. Or, you know, I just said, no, I'm going to win this. And just kept imagining myself winning the tournament. So when he did miss, I just came out of that recorder's hut and people would see I came onto that first tee. I was still in the zone, ready to go, focused. There was no, which I think is one, I often see this in playoffs. People tend to be happy to be there. You're never going to be happy if you lose it. It's actually a worse place to be if you lose it. So I didn't get to the first tee thinking, wow, I've got another chance. I just got to the playoff tee with, I'm going to win this.
Yeah. So, and when you do win it, do you feel then, I'm a different player now. I've arrived, but how did it feel in the immediate?
No, it was very exciting. It's always very exciting. Your first is incredibly exciting. You can't ever, you know, you can only have your first once, and that's the way it is. But there was something missing. I'd messed up the 72nd hole. Right. I played the 4 playoff holes majestic. I'd redeemed myself. But I hadn't won like you dream of winning as a kid.
Even though you'd won the Open,
I didn't have the glory of playing the 72nd hole well.
So you still wanted that. There's something where, okay, so that's done. I've won the Open Championship, but I could do it better.
Very exciting, but it definitely left something longing. Yeah, do you know anybody who dreams of winning the Open Championship, coming down the 72nd hole and hitting 2 balls in the water?
You know what, I think people dream of winning the Open by just holding a winning putt, which you had in the playoff. Or do you need the walk down this? Yeah,
but they don't. I messed up the hole, and that was, you know, I spent 8 years with Bob Torrance working on my game so not to do that. So it was a huge, and to this day, it's a huge crutch I bear all the time. Like it damaged my driving no end for the rest of my career. There's no doubt about it that one shot is so deeply embedded. It's really, really, really hurt the rest of my game for the rest of my career.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. It's stuck in there. The one thing you don't want to do when you're under pressure like that, your one opportunity, you hit a bad shot like that, it hurts. It's tough.
So you win the Connor Jug. Actually, I remember everyone was talking about Patrick demanding that it be filled with ladybirds, but
he did do that, yeah.
You didn't fill it with actual ladybirds.
My son ran onto the green, and when he first touched the trophy, he said, "Could we put ladybirds?"
Oh no, he did say that, yeah, but he didn't put ladybirds in it.
Yeah, I did, of course. He thought it was a piece of Tupperware. So the week before, we'd been collecting bugs, as you do, as cruel as you would be, and put them in little jam jars and things like that. So he just saw another jam jar. So yes, there was a ladybird in.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
I think it's different. We know it didn't, of course not. But I got a number of different, for everybody who worked in my team, I got them I got them a watch, and it's all engraved with the trophy and ladybirds flying around it and into it. So it's kind of stuck with me. I have a ladybird head cover. It's kind of stuck with it. It was, he was 3.5. It was just put it all in perspective. Yeah, you've just won the Open. You've got the claret jug, but hey, it's just a piece of Tupperware. I say Tupperware because I'm used to speaking in the States. It's just another jam jar.
A piece of Tupperware. Imagine the army held that, which they will. And even though you're not a drinker yourself, are you not a drinker at all, really?
I manage it.
Sherry at Christmas, maybe?
No, yeah.
Not in the Irish or Scottish tradition, though. So
I'm very much in the Irish and Scottish tradition. I'm actually the opposite of, I just don't drink. I just wouldn't sit and have a drink.
Okay, all right, okay. But you decided you put some whiskey in the claret. Was that your?
There was all sorts of things put in it, but the story you're referring to is I have some friends out in San Francisco. My caddy's older brother, one of my friends it's the best friends from younger days who I played golf with. I know a group of people out there, so I brought the trophy with me out to San Francisco. A couple of Irish bars, Foley's, and the Bank. And I brought it around, and I was going home one night with it in the taxi, and it was leaking. There was obviously still whiskey or remnants in it, and it was coming out the bottom of the trophy case. And this is the actual real one. This isn't my replica. And it's dripping out, and the taxi driver is looking. And he's kind of going, "Well, what's in the steel box?" And I'm kind of, even though he's actually got a golf glove on driving the car, so he's probably into his golf. I've kind of given it to, it's just it's an organ, body parts, because this kind of red stuff is. I'm just trying to get out of this thing. I should have really shown it to him. I didn't, but yeah, it was a funny story for 10 minutes. The taxi, what's in it?
You never let him see it.
I should have, but it was late. I was going home. I needed to get home. I was in that, that state you need to get home.
Yeah.
I was in that state. I needed to get home, and plus, I didn't really want to make such an emphasis of the fact that I was dripping on the back of the car whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming to the Birkdale, the Open, the next year. Beware the injured golfer, but skip ahead to the 17th and one of the great shots in the final round of a major championship.
Birkdale is the opposite to Carnoustie. I played great golf all week, swung the club, beautiful, hit all the shots, played, consistent, was in the last group on Sunday, was favourite going out Sunday, played beautifully Sunday, hit some beautiful shots Sunday, hit a great 3-wood onto the 15th hole to make birdie, then came down the 17th hole and I was left with this shot, 278 yards. 274 yards. God, it's amazing. It's drifting a little. 278 yards. And I hit 5-wood off a downslope. It was my favourite club in the bag. And Bob Torrance always said this. It's easy to hit a good shot when you're feeling great. It's really difficult to hit an average shot when you're feeling bad. I was feeling great. I had my favourite club. I was playing great. Why wouldn't I take the shot on? It's completely different. If I come into the 71st hole, I had a 2-shot lead. If I was struggling, if I'd gone from a 2-shot lead to a 2-shot lead and dropped a few shots, I would have hit 9-iron sandwich in there. I would have, but no, I could win it there and then. And a huge amount of golf is hitting the shots, the right shot at the right time, and that's part of that is how you feel and how you're playing at that time. You don't want to go aggressive when you're struggling with your game unless you're forced into it. And likewise, when things are going for you, then you keep taking them on.
Were you close to not playing because of the wrist injury?
I was very close. I'd injured my wrist. I'd won the Irish PGA the week before. And as you do, I came back and upstairs in my golf room, I was working on my speed. And I was hitting an impact bag. I was doing one-handed swings at the time, and I remember I got ball speed up to 177 mile an hour one-handed, which is pretty special.
So is this all a massive lie? Was it actually playing Space Invaders down here? And you've created this story.
No, and I decided one of the drills I was doing at the time was that I'd hit an impact bag, so I decided, this speed work's going well, one-handed. I used to hit one-handed shots on the range at the time, so I decided to hit an impact bag flat out one-handed, and I jarred something in my wrist, and I couldn't play golf. I iced it up, anti-inflammatories, but I then couldn't swing a golf club. That was Saturday evening. Sunday same, Monday the same. I was getting treatment 2-3 times a day. I was going over to Phil Mickelson's room in the hotel, in his hotel. He had a laser light treatment, and I was using that, obviously non-invasive sort of stuff, because I was getting so much of the manipulation treatment. Obviously you can only take so much of that when it starts to inflame it. So icing it and the laser light treatment is another way of doing it that I could. So basically I was getting treatment for 4 hours or 5 hours a day on this thing. And
was he in the room, or were you just breaking into his hotel room to use it?
He was in the room.
Okay.
Yes.
This was with permission.
Yes, it was with his permission. And when I got to I hit no full shots onto the range on Thursday morning, and I obviously hit those gingerly. I got on the golf course, and it was the worst day. It wasn't as bad as the hour we spent at Muirfield in 2002, but it was the worst conditions consistently. We'd gone out, and it was cold and wet going out there. If you remember, Sandy Lyle walked in. He thought the conditions, and for me, it probably wasn't a bad thing, because I was, it meant everybody was struggling. I was struggling. I wasn't too sure about this wrist, and on the 6th hole, I hit it left into some briars. It was kind of briary stuff, and my hack out was with a sand wedge, but I had to hit it. And so it was the first time I'd gone after a shot since I'd hurt the wrist, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I hit it full out flat out of heavy briary stuff, and the wrist was fine. And it was like the clouds opened up and the sunshine in my world. Yeah, it could have been a heavenly choir at that moment, because everybody else was miserable, but I then all of a sudden, I can play. Yeah. And I from there on, I was buzzing.
And you are, and from there on, after the tournament, you go to the USPGA, which,
well, I have 3 major wins. So the first one was very exciting.
Yeah.
Second one was very satisfying, because I won the second one like you would dream of winning. You swung the club well. You did all those things. If you're a kid dreaming, this is how no errors, just played nicely. Everything went right. I had the glory of the final group and walking down the last with a lead and hitting nice shots, hitting a great shot, best shot of my career on the 71st hole. That sort of stuff. All those things. So very satisfying. First one exciting. Second one satisfying. The third one, I just stole it. Just robbed it. Now that is fun. I can tell, when you get one that wasn't yours, it was never mine. It was never mine. It wouldn't have been mine if I was playing great golf, obviously physically after the Open, but I got seriously dehydrated on the Thursday and lost all coordination. Didn't know what had happened, because I was hydrating. It was just on the back of winning. It was just too much 2 weeks later. And then on the Friday, the same thing happened again. Played the front 9 brilliantly, and then just lost all coordination on the back 9. Just completely gone. Like on my last 2 holes, on my 36th hole, it's par 3 9th at Oakland Hills. I hit 4 iron, I hit it pin high, and had 80 yards for my second shot. 80 yards.
Yeah.
Like, as in, if there was I only made the cut in the mark. If there was another hole, I'd missed the cut.
Yeah.
And then I got, which happens when you win majors, these things happen. I got a thunderstorm on Saturday. Only had to play 9 holes, and basically gave me the extra 24 hours to recover. And by Sunday, I came out fresh and strong. And as much, the strangest thing about Sunday is I played great golf, and I was talking to somebody one of the caddies who was in the group, and he was just said he'd never seen golf like it. And I said to him, you cannot believe how fragile I was on the Saturday and Sunday, because I'd hit some of the worst golf shots ever on the Friday because I'd lost coordination. Like, I'd hit some. So they were always in the back of my mind on Saturday and Sunday, but I had no choice but to hit good shots, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Poor old Sergio again. But I know you give a shrug, and that's golf. But you must have felt as well at that time that you were just mentally a bit stronger than some of the competition. And you were sensing some people, and perhaps Sergio would be a great example of that, someone that was not quite so mentally robust coming down the stretch.
I think I was always stronger mentally than my competitors. That's how I beat people as an amateur. I was better mentally. I had to be. I had to have that resolve. I've always had a good attitude when I've hit a bad shot to recover. It's not just that I had a good short game. I also didn't bother me that I hit the bad shot. I could work with it, and I wasn't thinking about the past. I was playing the shot that I had in hand, and that's how I won matches. That's the only way I knew to play. So I think when you're looking at mentally strong, it's hard to be mentally strong when you are very consistent tee to green. You hit the ball to 20 feet all day. You're going to create no momentum by two-putting all the time. I miss a few greens and get up and down. I'm feeling great about my game, and then I hit it to 20 feet and I'll probably hold the putt, and I'm 1 under after 3 holes and you're level par. You're feeling terrible. I'm feeling great. So I was always strong mentally. I always had a bit of fight in me. I think it's very hard. It's much harder when you have that different expectations, I suppose, higher expectations at the top. You're consistently tee to green.
I mean, you've won 3 majors. You just about, Tiger apart, the best player in the world at that time. So what 2009, 2010 things slipped away. What is that? Is that reaching the peak and not? I can't imagine with you as losing motivation or losing drive. Did you try and change things?
Well, I played better in 2009 than I did in 2008. I just didn't have the wins. And 2010, the same. Statistically, I was a far better player. The wins didn't come. I think my best tee to green golf ever was 2012.
So is it just the pieces not coming together as they did in those 3 majors that you took?
You when you win tournaments, you could look at 2012. I needed to birdie the last to get into a playoff at the Open, US Open, and I had 2 4-putts that week. 2 4-putts, 2 3-putts. I had the yips at that stage. So it's amazing how people assume results determine exactly how you're physically playing. But I think I played great 2009, 2010. There was definitely an element to be trying to sort out, and I got frustrated. I ended up changing coach with Bob because I wanted to know why I hit that shot in the 72nd hole at Carnoustie. That definitely was lingering. There's no doubt about it.
Is that shot still staying with you at that time?
It stayed with me until I figured out why I hit it physically. And it comes full circle. I know why I hit it physically, but the solution is still mental anyway. But I still needed to get the physical solution out of the way and figure that out. And that took me. It was very simple. It took about 5 years. Before I worked it out. 2012 I started working with Pete Cowan and hit the ball beautifully. I think I played well, but I did struggle with my putting as 2012 onwards. I got the yips. I just was, it's very hard to play that way. You play better tee to green, but you score worse. Performance wise, I look back, if I was going to change something, I think trying to fix that drive and a few other things, I certainly got worse because of that at my mental game. And at one stage believed I was doing all the right stuff. I would have thought and believed that I just wasn't as good at the mental side of it, or wasn't as, but I actually now have kind of come full circle and go, actual fact, I still can do the focus stuff. I just have to be better in my preparation of it.
Well, as we speak, you've just narrowly missed out on winning, I was going to say European Tour title 16 in the Czech Masters.
Yeah.
So you obviously believe that, titles can be there. Do you believe you could still win a major?
Oh yeah. I don't think I'd play if I didn't, I want only interested in winning. Winning tournaments is good enough, no doubt about it. But I would like to. It's easier to win a major than it is a regular event, no doubt about it. As I said, there's a lot of guys that really struggle with the majors who are fine players. I think I can do it. I'm very excited about my game at the moment. I'm well on top of what I need to be doing, and as I said, I feel like I've come full circle through carrying that burden of the tee shot in 2007, and I feel like I'm coming out the far side. I've been, working very hard with Bob Torrance and it's been really interesting, the work I've been doing, because I'm trying to do the right stuff on the golf course, but you know, in many respects I just haven't been doing the right stuff in preparation, and I can see the benefits at the Czech Masters, and you know, I feel like it's going in a good direction.
Right, we've got to wrap a few things up. Ronan Flood, we haven't talked about, you talked to him as the caddy for much of your career, but he's also married to, so does that make him, does make him your brother-in-law, really, doesn't it? Yes.
I think people would say brother-in-law, but I think would have to be my wife's brother to be brother-in-law.
Right, okay, so he's a sort of brother-in-law. But when did you first get to know him?
He is the younger brother of one of my best friends at school, my junior foursomes partner in the golf club. So I've known Ronan long before I knew my wife, long before, you know, over 30 years, 32 years, something like that, 33 years I've known him. He was meant to be the next me in the golf club.
Oh, was he?
Oh, yeah.
So this guy's the next Padraig Harrington.
Yeah, he was a good player. Good. I meant golfing wise. He's better than me.
That was a good player. Yeah, so another thing is, actually, I've seen you give clinics, incidentally. Now, I've seen you give clinics, and they're the most, as you can imagine, a listener, the most thorough and diligent and not quite analytical, but certainly detailed clinics. But they can be pretty dangerous places as well.
Yeah, there was. I got hit by an amateur. Any PGA pro will tell you, they'll list out how many times they've been hit with golf balls, clipped with clubs, all sorts of things. But I was teaching this guy, he had a hook and was on the golf course, and I says, right, I can sort that hook out for you in 30 seconds. And I got in beside him, shoulder to shoulder, to show him the move that he needed to do. So I was standing my right shoulder to his left shoulder. I was holding the club and mimicking the move. Right, you swing like that. And then I went to walk away. So obviously I'm right shoulder, his left shoulder, he's right-handed. So I stepped at a 45 degrees and he kept swinging. And he swung through and hit me up underneath the elbow. I still don't know whether he hit me with the face or the top of the club on the elbow, like with a full practice follow through. And it was, I assume, a second or two of what just happened.
Then you thought,
the pain.
Good swing.
No, well, there's more to it than the pain of it. Luckily, I had a golf cart with the ice bucket on the golf cart, and I walked over and just stuck my elbow in it. And so within 10 seconds, I had it in an iced water. Now, who knows how dirty the water was, but however, had it in that, and literally the pain within a minute, I could feel nothing in my arm because of it was all iced up. I had it compressed within a minute with ice. I had a bag of ice around it. So literally, and that, like, as much as I got split in the arm, and if anybody ever gets banged in the elbow, it comes up like a tennis ball. I had no swelling, and so I actually managed, even though I think it was 6 stitches or something like that, and it split the bursa sac. It had a remarkable good recovery. But the interesting thing about it was I went to the hospital and I came back after the hospital after about 2 hours, 3 hours or so, and the guy was there still, and he finished out. He was devastated that he hit me, but he still played the 17th and 18th. He then, to my joy, he said I had solved his draw, that he did manage to hit a fade, and he did send on ice hockey elbow pads to me as a gift for hitting me on the elbow.
Must have been mortified, but there we are.
He was mortified, but not that more. He's like all golfers. He was mortified, but he still played.
Yeah, and was happy that his draw had been sorted. Excellent. And off the course, what do you do? I mean, again, we're sitting here, you've got a table tennis table there, pool, but this is more for the boys. And what do you like to do off the course to unwind?
These were for me, but I to be honest, you know, I like my golf. I'm into my golf. And outside of golf, it's just family things. You know, I put my effort into my golf, and I want to chill out when I'm not playing golf. So I'm not going learning how to ski or things like that. I've just no interest in I can't understand things like skiing and that. Why would you want to be? I'm not allowed to use that word. Why would you want to be?
You can. We'll just bleep it out.
Half-arsed at something.
I can use that. God.
Yeah, like I can never ski as good as I can play golf.
No, but it's the fun of just throwing yourself down a slope.
But why?
Speed.
But you can't be as good as you're going to be at golf.
You don't have to be good at it.
I do.
Okay.
I'd want to see, if I started skiing, I'd want to be the best skier I could be. And that would mean time and effort and work to be like all the time, effort and work I would put into skiing to become at best average. Why would you bother?
God, can you imagine how good an accountant you would have been? You'd have been the most, I'm going to be the best accountant. Oh, these figures are going to be, I'm going to get you some tax breaks, my friend. How would you like to be thought of, or does that not bother you? It's not.
It does bother me. I fully understand that I have helped create a monster in the terms of that, you know, people will judge me no end on being crazy, mad, scientists, all those sort of things. Not the legacy I probably would have wanted, but I have fueled it many times. I'm certainly feel like I'd be misunderstood in many ways. Like I like to point out, I haven't played golf since 1997 with a swing thought.
Yes,
and everybody thinks I'm standing there with loads of swing thoughts. So I would never, all I'm thinking about is my target, that's it.
Really?
Yeah.
That means you're not quite as analytical.
I'm nowhere near what people think. When you see me doing a drill on the range, the drill is taking care of any physical thoughts. So if I put something there, so I sometimes would use blockers, so I'd put one forward of my driver and back here, so the club has to come outside this one and underneath this one. Well, it's a visual thing. I don't have to think about it. I'm just not going to hit them. So another guy would say, oh, well, I want to take the club back a little straighter. Well, to actually take the club back straighter, you got to think about it. Stick a head cover there or something. Well, the club has to stay outside it. Visually, you will do that. It's an instinctive thing. So I do things on the range that look silly because I don't want to be engaging my brain or thinking. And so when I go and play, I want to be purely instinctive and into my target, which is, put it like this, the book I write will be the opposite of what people think I am.
Really?
Yeah.
When's that going to come out?
Yeah, it doesn't...
10 years' time.
Yeah, I don't know.
10 years' time.
I don't know.
We've got to wrap things up. We didn't even get time to talk about the music of German heavy metal band Rammstein.
Have you been looking at my...
No, this is old stuff here in this jukebox beside us here.
Yeah, they're only the names. They're modern inside.
Really?
Is
Rammstein in there?
Yes, it is, yes. It's reconditioned, that one.
Can you describe the music of Rammstein?
I'm actually, it's not...
You're overanalyzing this, Patrick.
Yes, I know. What is it again? I'm new. I've forgotten the term for it.
Industrial metal, something like that.
Is that what it's called? Industrial metal? It's
They're Germans.
They're German, yeah. It's grunge. It's not grunge. I'm struggling with... Anyway, it's okay for sitting in your car on your own. Okay. Yes, get you going at times. But it's probably, if I really understood the words, it's probably pretty miserable.
Yeah, exactly. You admire Bernhard Langer and Rammstein. There's definitely a Germanic bent to...
Well, I'd be more into Imagine Dragons now and things like that. So I haven't listened to Rammstein in a while.
Okay.
I've got kids now, you know. I've got responsibilities.
Fair enough. You have responsibilities. Do they play golf? The two boys? Other sports?
Rugby.
Yeah,
rugby big time. They're into their sports, but golf would be a little bit further down the line. They'll both be very respectable, but you know, it'd be virtually impossible to follow in your father's footsteps in a sport. So I certainly don't push them down the road, but they need to, and they both will. I'm sure when they're 30 years of age, they're going to turn up at some outing, and they've got to be able to swing the club and boom it off into the trees. At least look respectable.
Okay. Excellent. Listen, thanks. It's been fascinating as ever talking to you. We've taken a good deal of your time. We're all off now to watch Roadhouse. Thanks for talking to us, Patrick.
It's not quite appropriate, Roadhouse, for the younger generation.
Oh, well, I'm fine. I love it.
Okay.
To watch another European Tour video, click here, and to subscribe, click here.